Hello and welcome back to yet another live episode of Green and White, brought to you by Argyle Life. Before we get started, remember to like, comment, subscribe, get your comments and questions in. All that good stuff. Anyway, on with the pod. Argyle fans were up at the crack of dawn ahead of a 560-mile round trip to Buckfordshire and were finally rewarded for their efforts on the road after a 3-2 win over Luton Town. Argyle battled hard and still got the home side tailing twice, despite the referee's best efforts to be a pain in the arse, awarding 2 penalties and sending off both Argyle captain Joe Edwards and head coach Tom Cleverley. But we stayed in the game by the seat of our pants. But wait, there's more. Luton's back end faltered and Bradley Ibrahim won the game with a bootyful winner going in off his cheek, seemingly leaving some of Argyle's on-pitch worries in the rear view mirror whilst moving away from the bottom of the league. Joining me tonight, 3 men. A man who always cracks me up, Adam Price. How's things?
Oh, I can't beat that. I'm sorry. Yeah, very well. All the better for the last minute of my life, I think.
The cheeky John Alsop. How's things?
Good. I'm over the moon, Aaron.
Yeah, good. I was trying to get a mooning joke in there. I couldn't quite. I can imagine half the people listening have no clue what's going on. And the butt of all the jokes, Sam Down. How's things?
Very good indeed. Thank you.
Good. Those intros would be great. They'd be a lot better, I reckon, if I actually pre-read them and knew what I was going to say. But anyway, Sam Down, post-match run through.
Not like you to make an arse of yourself.
No, exactly. I wish I'd spent 6 minutes rehearsing those. Sam Down, post-match run through. Give us your customary one. Obviously, we discussed this off air quickly. If you could give us a run through the game, but not too much opinion on it.
Not too much opinion. Okay. Well, all these long trips were absolutely made to be worth it yesterday, and a very unexpected, very joyous, very rare away win. We obviously got to the ground more in hope than anticipation. Obviously, the game began quite brightly, as genuinely, I think, literally every single Tom Cleverley game has, without exception. First 10-15 minutes, pretty bright. Obviously, we then eventually found the lead through what I think was one of the most brilliant bits of skill from Lorent Tolaj that I've seen from an Argyle player in quite some time. Lovely little touch to turn around the defender, completely skin the defender, and an inch perfect cross from Mathias Sorinola, who was coming in from the left-hand side. Superb header, timed it absolutely perfectly. Keeper didn't have much of a chance, and then we obviously got into the lead within not long at all, about 2 or 3 minutes of going into the penalty. Obviously was conceded down the other end. It was a very badly timed jump from wide who absolutely clobbered the Luton player, and then Plymouth Argyle's Jerry Yates stepped up to convert the penalty. Very well taken penalty, to be fair. We, again, from the mental resilience point of view, that was a point that I was very, very concerned about earlier in the season. We did respond pretty well to the equaliser. We were very, very aggressive pressing, didn't sit back, didn't let Luton really get on top. Defensively sound, didn't let them, even when they did have the ball, we very disciplined positionally, really, respected the game plan and didn't let them have an inch, really. And then in terms of pressing, one of the best bits of counter-pressing, again, in a very long time, from a player who I have had negative things to say about, but had a brilliant game yesterday, Bradley Ibrahim. Just, pickpocketed the ball from the Luton player's feet. Really, really good game IQ, just knowing the right moment to press, and then got the ball. And then, as well as that, an absolutely superb finish. It's with Ibrahim, it's getting a bit like Barley Mumba in the title season, of just having a knack of always scoring from improbable positions. and great for him for that goal. Obviously, we come back out after half time, and the first 10 minutes of the second half were not pretty at all. There was obviously another penalty given away. I think, about genuinely, like 2-3 minutes after the restart, maybe not even that, maybe more like about a minute. This is where there might be some disagreement later in the pod with John. I think it was a penalty. Don't get me wrong. I think it's on the soft side. But I do think one thing we all moan about with referees is we moan about lack of consistency. And we say, if that was done anywhere else on the pitch, it would have been a free kick. And I'm sorry, I agree, you don't often see penalties given for that. But if that was done anywhere else on the pitch, it would have been a free kick. So yes, it's inconsistent. So I kind of get the gripe to an extent. But it wasn't. He's held the player, he's got arms around the player, and he has impeded the player from jumping for the header. It's a penalty kick. So I think the correct decision was given there. And interestingly, they didn't go for the same taker. And so rather than Plymouth Argyle's Jerry Yates, it was, I think, Plymouth Argyle's Naki Wells, wasn't it, who stepped up to take the second penalty. And again, Luca Ashby-Hammond kept up his record of going the wrong way 9 times out of 9. And yeah, they equalised. And then I think genuinely, not even a minute after the restart from the penalty, Joe Edwards was sent off for a very dangerous, maybe very dangerous pushing it, but I think it was a dangerous tackle, and it was deservedly a red card. And yeah, it was 2-footed, uncontrolled, side through the player, didn't win the ball. Maybe you can say it's one of those where you'd give it an amber card if such a thing existed, but again, by the letter of the law, it is a red card. So I do think other decisions were correct. I actually think, if anything, we maybe even got a bit lucky in that there was another very big penalty shout, again, immediately after the red card that he didn't give. I almost wonder if it was one of those where he thought, right, I've given him 2 penalties, I can't give him a third one, sort of thing. So I think maybe luck worked a little bit in our favour there, but then up the other end. I want to say in that intervening spell between the red card and when we weathered the initial 5-minute storm after the red card, we really then kept Luton at arm's length. Defensively, we were absolutely spectacular, really strong defensively. Didn't lose position once. No mistakes were given away. Absolutely, full applause to all the members of the team for that spell. Tom Cleverley was then sent off for what seemed like quite a minor infraction. I think, I guess he was booked for complaining earlier, but then he stepped out of his penalties technical area to talk to Boateng. And I'm sorry, I think if you give yellows for stepping out of the penalty area, pretty much every manager would get booked every game. So that one, I agree, was very harsh. Cleverley's second yellow, but there we go. Tom Cleverley.
I would say that managers probably should get booked for going in the penalty area.
Did I say penalty area? Technical area, my apologies. Outside the technical area, my apologies.
What if they're player managers, John? Does that count?
Anyway, back to it. We then scored our third goal from absolutely the most ridiculous circumstances I have ever seen. And I don't want to undermine how well we played, because I don't think we really did play well, by saying we were lucky. That third goal should not have happened on about 10 different levels. Tolaj shooting from the halfway line. It's going very far wide, and their keeper decides he's going to touch it round for a corner anyway, even though it's going wide. And then even if he does think it's going in, from the distance it's shot from, you absolutely would expect the keeper to hold on to that. So it's a gaff from the keeper on 2 levels. And then there's the absolute sequence of events when the ball goes in. And it sort of bobbles around. We get in a good position to Ibrahim, and then he doesn't quite make the right connection to it, and it goes back out, and then the defender boots it almost onto Ibrahim's face and then back into the net. The old saying, if you need one to going off the backside, he had one going off his face, which is really, really weird. And went over and obviously shushed the Luton fans, as we saw. It's kind of remarkable. Of all the games Ibrahim has been booked, the one game he didn't get booked was the one where he pretty much dived straight first into the opposing fans. But goodness knows how on earth he avoided a booking for that.
He didn't get booked to get Stockport either, Sam, because he lost me a few quid. So.
True, but we're very glad he didn't, because that means he's available for the Peterborough game. Whereas if he had been booked for that, we wouldn't have had him for the Peterborough game. So yeah, that was it. And then the last 10 minutes, they had one very good chance, and it was only one. Like we restricted them to absolutely minimal. They had one very good chance, which was a superb reflex save by Luca Ashby-Hammond. That was by a country mile, in my view, to the untrained eye. And I don't know if the stats will back this up, Adam. That is the best chances prevented by a country mile. He had no right to make that save, but it was an incredible reflex save and somehow kept the ball out from what was actually a very, very quick finish. But yeah, we held on, we won away. Like I say, I'm absolutely ecstatic with how we played. Real battling performance. You know, and I know I said it's a big aspect of luck with the third goal, but even if we'd have drawn that game, I'd have still been ecstatic with how we played, because we defensively we were superb. We definitely looked much more comfortable with the three at the back shape. Yeah, and the improvements we've made to get 2 wins out of 2 against Stockport and Luton are astronomical. Fair play, Tom Cleverley. Fair play, this team. And I've probably already rambled on a bit too much, but at least I've not answered every question that Aaron has lined up. So I will now hand over to someone else.
You don't know that because you don't know how much I've got lined up, but yeah. Stephen Cooper says, leave Sam alone. He's talking sense tonight. I agree, Sam. So there is a first time for everything, which is good. First time we win on the away from home in months, and the first time Sam makes any sense. So that's good. Go on, John.
Lovely to be praised by the Brondby manager as well. That's real pedigree there.
Don't get the joke, but that's fine. Okay, moving on. Adam.
Steve Cooper is the Brondby manager, Aaron.
Oh, I see. Is he? That's good. That's nice for him. I'm glad that he's got a new employment. Oh, that's good. Adam, I'm going to be honest. I haven't listened to pods recently. Been a bit busy / preoccupied / can't really be asked. Stuck with the back three, obviously, that we saw against Stockport. It's got to be the way forward now, isn't it? Great to see. It's great to see as well, Cleverley, like learning and adapting on the job, because that was one thing we heard from like Watford fans, that he was a bit stuck to his principles. So it's good to see him doing that and taking that forward, right?
Yeah, 100%, and possibly a bit of a long time coming, but better late than never for sure. It's looked, to be honest, from game one of the season, that a back three is going to be the way that this team in particular is able to function to its best self, and I think the last 2 games have demonstrated that terrifically. It's you don't want to go too overboard with the victory, as much as you don't want to go too overboard with when we lose a game and when we were playing the other shape. But this game really felt like, and really does actually feel like, it means something with the way that we've come out of that with a victory, playing in a way that or in a system that suits us, and fighting to the end to get the results. I think there's so much there that we can take from it, with Cleverley changing the shape, with it getting results, and with the fight that was put in to get the result in the back of it. I think when Edwards actually received his red card, and there's still 40 minutes left in the game, and then obviously we've got 10 more minutes of added time, I think the thing that crossed my mind after a few minutes with that is, it had a feeling of QPR away last season, where it felt as though, we're down to 10 here, we've still got a point to hold on to. It's going to be tough, but we can fight it out. We can soak a bit of pressure. And of course, we've ended up doing much better than that and come away with winning the game, which is obviously superb. And, just to touch on that final goal again, it is extraordinary. We speak a lot about Cleverley's planning and the shape that he's used and how it's benefited us. I don't think there's anything that can plan for an outcome like that, where we've taken a shot from the halfway line. There's a keeper on the other goal who has been one of the best goalkeepers in League One for the last couple of seasons, instrumental in getting Leyton Orient to the playoffs, to the playoff finals last season. Has been, by all accounts, one of the better keepers this year as well, who has for some reason decided to tip something around the post after it's going 10 yards wide. And in between that corner being taken, our managers got sent off for some reason. He did actually end up in the penalty area, as I recall, just after he'd walked past our fans and got serenaded. Took a bit of a jaunt through the penalty area to avoid the Luton fans, which I thought was particularly fair, given his Watford history. And from that, got one of the most absurd goals that you'll ever see. And it's luck that's on our side as well. Cleverly changing the shape to a back three has helped us incredibly. It's also aided us, and we've got to be fair, that we've had a bit of good fortune in the last couple of games, which we did not have in the first few. And if you look at the way that that Cardiff beat us in that game. Of course, they were the better side, but to beat us 4-0 that day, I thought was a bit of an insult, and it clearly flattered them. The fact that they were 3-0 up in that game with a couple of deflections and long range shots. So it's really nice to have got something back. I absolutely do, Aaron, feel as though that the back three has played a part in that, and I do hope that continues, particularly as we know that there's been a couple more injuries at play that I'm sure we'll get onto later on to Such and Watts, which could cause us difficulties in maintaining a shape that we want to go forward with. Do I think this is going to be the case forever? Probably not. I think Cleverley does clearly prefer a back four, and ideally will build towards getting a squad that is fit for his preferred shape in the future. But I think right now it clearly works for us, and when you've got that going in your favour and a little bit of a stroke of luck as well, I think you've got to be happy.
Adam, I'm going to come back to you because I just remembered that the next question is about Lorent Tolaj, and he's somebody that you want to talk about in more depth. So obviously taking, where the fuck's the question gone? Excuse my French there. Taking the lead away from home for the first time this season. Obviously great goal from Sorinola, but it's all about Tolaj and the build up to that, isn't it? Like, just gives us a completely new dynamic up top, and I would have loved to have seen him with a Hardy or a Bundu as well. That would have been fantastic.
These very early days looks to be one of the best signings we've made for a number of years at the minute. I don't want to get carried away because we know signings who have had good starts and petered off as we've gone on. But my immediate thought right now, when he's played a few games, is, oh my God, how long are we going to be able to hold on to this guy? Which is testament to how well he's done. And these last couple of games, he's missed a few chances and scored one goal in them, which is, on the face of it, not a terrific record. But actually, the amount that he's added to the team, the amount that he just makes the entire attack click, it is fantastic. And I think that the goal and the first goal there is an example of that. He takes it down superbly. He puts in a pinpoint cross to the back post where Sorinola's coming in. And a bit of a side note, but Sorinola in the left wing back position, getting in there in exactly the sort of position I expect to find Ballymumba, is very encouraging for his versatility as well. But yeah, it's all about Tolaj, and it's not the only thing he's done in that game, by the way. He's had that shot from the halfway line, which admittedly is a bit ridiculous in the way it turns out, but I don't think many players would have had the confidence to take it on. He clearly does. It's very good to see. The fact that he's got an assist is very good, and it's not the first time he's got one of those either. He's not been a goal poacher by any stretch of the imagination. His creativity has also been an element of his game at Port Vale, and I think we're seeing that as well. And he's actually, one thing that did surprise me, given the amount of possession Luton had, he's actually won more fouls in that game than any other player on the pitch, which just shows how he can be a magnet both for the ball and opposition defenders. The way he gets us, he gives us an outlet at that end of the field, even if he doesn't necessarily win an aerial duel in the conventional sense. Just his presence alone is a really, really good sign for us. So there's two concerns. I know I'm going early with the comment on screen that I think he might just be a better signing than Victor Paulson. At the moment, he's still got plenty of time to, he's still got plenty of heights to hit, shall we say. But yeah, the two worries I think I have surrounding Tolaj, well, one worry and one little gripe, I guess, is that if he gets injured, it feels like we're in deep trouble. And there's been a lot of injuries, as I touched upon earlier. If we lose Tolaj, I think, to be honest, I thought Ben Peppel came on yesterday and did his job for what he needed to do pretty well. But I think it's clear that there is a chasm right now between Tolaj and the other options we've got up front. So that's a worry if we've not got the option of going forward without him available. And again, with the amount of strikers we were looking at over the summer, the amount of time it took us to do it, why on earth we've waited until very, very late in the transfer window to trigger this guy's release clause when he is clearly excellent is a surprise to me. And who knows how many points we may have picked up had we had a fit Lorent Tolaj in from the start of July with the fixtures that we had where we were clearly lacking a first choice centre forward. I don't know. It feels a bit odd to me, but much like we were saying for Cleverley changing his life, I guess it is better late than never. It is a huge credit that we have managed to get him in, and I really hope that performance level is maintained for a while, because if it is, we've easily got one of the best strikers in this league on our hands.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the second question, isn't it? Yeah, I need to tick these as I ask you. Not the only chasm we saw yesterday. John, 2 questions for you now. You've sat there nicely for nearly 20 minutes, so let's give you a couple to answer. 5 minutes after that Sorinola goal, Weirdo gives away arguably a cheap foul. I know that you and Sam have a disagreement on this, but he's given
not on that one.
No? Okay, on any of them. Do you want to just basically do a ref watch?
Yeah,
Why not?
I didn't think. Yeah, I mean, a certain person who I go to Argyle with sometimes, who was stood next to me, not affiliated with this podcast, was absolutely furious with the referee, both during the game and after watching the highlights back. Said that you'll never see another team in the country get 2 penalties and a red given against them in the same game, and the referee was absolutely determined for Luton to win, and ultimately didn't get what he wanted. I think that's very harsh, personally. I think the Weirdo one is clearly a penalty. Weirdo, I think, is emerging as a player who has a lot of good attributes and a player that I like a lot. He is clearly capable of an enormous head loss and a terrible mistake. And this was another one, right? We've seen several of them so far in his nascent Argyle career, and he doesn't need to jump like that. You know, it's a ridiculous way to jump, overly aggressive, leads with the arm. It's a very clear penalty. Probably a bit lucky that he didn't actually make a stronger contact with his arm, if anything, because that could have been a red card or caused an injury to the player. So I think it's a definite pen. The red card, the highlights packages I've seen, in the ground, it was like, I mean, anyone who was there or who's been to Kenilworth Road will know that the phrase obscured view doesn't really do it justice. Pretty much every seat, it's impossible to see large portions of what's going on. That Edwards thing was a bit of a blur to me. And then the replays of it, quite a lot of them just sort of start while he's lunging in. So it's a little bit hard to see like the angle and the momentum with which he comes in. I would say, to me, it looks like a excessive force in the challenge. I think you could maybe make a case that it's a yellow card. I'm not saying I would like die on the hill of thinking it's a red, but I don't think it's one where you can really criticize the referee for going to his pocket. Unlike, for example, the Weirdo red card at Lincoln, where to get a second yellow card for diving for that is absolutely crazy. This one, I think it's, even again, if you were to make a case that it's a yellow, I think it's really poor from Edwards, because he's a seasoned leader in what is a very young team. And it's just complete head loss, a really difficult time. And he's probably the last player on the pitch you would expect to do something that rash and give the referee a decision to make. I actually don't think the Sorinola penalty, I have no idea where I went there. I did not think the Sorinola penalty was a penalty, personally. Again, it's not one where I think it's like the worst refereeing howler of all time. There are games this season, most notably Barnsley at home, where I've been extremely critical of the referee for making just a string of incomprehensible decisions, but fair's fair. I think this one, maybe you could argue it's a little 50-50. For me, I just don't think there's really a lot in what Sorinola's doing. I think they're both sort of, holding on to each other a little bit. I don't think that Sorinola sort of exerts any force that causes the player to go down. He's clearly looking for it. I mean, he sort of throws himself into Sorinola and then onto the ground to make it look like, I think there's more to it than there is. I think it's very innocuous and very, very soft, personally. I actually recall thinking that the one that Sam mentioned after that maybe could have been a penalty. I can't remember who did the offending challenge. Was it Galloway?
Sorinola again, I think.
Oh, Sorinola again, right.
Yeah.
And I remember sort of like clenching, clenching my teeth is not a phrase. Is it you clench other parts of the body that make
they had another foul as well for Galloway quite late on. I think that one was absolutely nothing.
No. There was nothing in that. Yeah, but there was the other Sorinola one. I think, you could make a case for it. And I remember sort of thinking, maybe we've got away with one a little bit there. I think the Sorinola one that was given, as I've said, I don't think was. But actually, I don't think the referee was terrible for a game where, we've had 3 adverse decisions go against us. I can't really comment on the Cleverley red because I have no idea what happened in the second instance. If Sam is correct that he was shown a second yellow for being outside of his box, that seems like the sort of thing that, I don't know, it seems maybe you'd have some discretion in just sort of giving him a final warning. Maybe he'd had his final warning. I don't know. It's hard to say. But I don't think it was the worst refereeing performance of the season, despite the fact we had a lot of decisions go against us. And I don't know, maybe that's a boring answer. But
Boring but fair, though, I'd suggest. I think people were could have been reasonably annoyed by the fact we've had so many big decisions go against us in one game, but all of them were arguable. And I agree with John that I don't think any of them were particular howlers. I mean, for the Ali one later on, Sorinola again on him, when it all comes together, there's nothing in the Galloway one, but for fans of stats, you could possibly argue their expected penalties from those decisions was about 2. So maybe he's levelled it out.
Yeah, Sam, just to bring you in on that before I actually go to John's second question. I personally think that's just an incredibly stupid tackle from Edwards. You expect better from your captain. And also, are his and Cleverley's red cards a byproduct of passion, or are they actually a lack of leadership?
In the words of Gary Wackett from the film Mike Bassett, England Manager, it's all very well and good having passion, but you've got to control it. And as much as
you tried to wind me up.
Yeah, thank you for excluding the F word, unlike Aaron earlier. This is a family-friendly show. But yeah, as much as I joke about that, I do think that sentence does probably sum up a little bit where we're at the moment. And look, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to try and bring too much negativity into what is a very rare, happy podcast. Yeah, you know we've won because the view's not as high. People want to see us moan and rant and rave. But anyway, yeah, as much as I don't want to inject.
Why not? Sorry, are they better when Joe's on, are they? Sorry.
Yeah, something like that. Nothing to do. No slot on you, Aaron. Don't worry. Yeah.
Cracking.
Yeah, as much as I don't want to inject too much negativity into what is largely a happy podcast, I do think that sentence kind of sums up a little bit where we're at with discipline. I keep coming back to it. I don't want to moan about it. He did a great game, and John's going to eulogise about him in a minute. But I don't know how Ibrahim escaped that game without a booking. Not only the incident with the crowd after the goal, but nearly getting into a bit of a tussle with one of their players when he gave away a foul by the edge of the area shortly after going 3-2 up, and Tolaj had to pretty much frog march him away from getting into another scuffle with a player. So goodness knows how Ibrahim is going to be playing in that Peterborough game, because he really should have been booked. So yeah, what I will say is that Long White was lucky not to get a second yellow in the first half. That one could have very much gone either way. Long White was lucky to see out the game as well for Luton. But yeah, we do just need to calm down a bit at times, because yeah, that was an absolutely flying tackle from Joe Edwards. Got nowhere near the ball. It was 2 feet. It was uncontrolled, and he's given the referee, an enormous decision to make. And you can't, you can't blame him for the one he's made. Regarding Cleverley, yes, I do think it is a little harsh, but at the same time, you do need your manager and your captain to show that leadership. That's Cleverley obviously going to miss the Peterborough game on the touchline. Edwards is going to now miss the next 3 games, so he'll miss Peterborough, he'll miss Burton away, and he'll miss Wigan home. He would, in theory, be because the Pizza Cup is counted separately. He would, so we'll probably actually give him a game in that just to keep his legs relatively fresh, getting some minutes. So in theory, he'd be back league-wise for Mansfield away, and that could actually be postponed due to international. So we could actually be another month before we see Joe Edwards in the green and white again in a league game. Which I think is so funny, considering Argyle made such a fuss about his coming up to his 250th appearance in a few games' time, and we're going to do a tifo for him, which is great. And then I was
going to say, on that really quickly, Sam, I've been asked to promote that by PAFC Displays, who are doing a fundraiser for that. So we might come back to that in a couple of weeks. But
yeah, we might do it sometime this side of Christmas, depending on Joe Edwards' disciplinary record.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you do want to contribute to that, PAFC Displays are doing a fundraising appeal for it, but but if anything, it gives them more time to fundraise. So it's going to be
that is very true. He's done them a favour then. But yeah. Jokes aside, I do think that the passion is great. It's certainly far better than the team who just head drops and give up, and it's flat, and we don't have any fight. But yeah, just a little bit more control in the passion is all I ask for from this team, because yes, yesterday it did not cost us. Very, very easily in other games, it could cost us. So that's just a little bit to improve on, I would say.
Not to discuss the rest of the absentees, Adam, but Rankers C97, Callum, as I know him, is asking, is Edwards' red worth the appeal? We're already short in the fullback areas. Just feels like one of those that's not really worth appealing, because we just know it's going to be upheld.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not entirely sure of the truth behind the we'll add another game for a frivolous appeal. I haven't actually seen it happen in real life very often outside of a Championship Manager game. So maybe it's worth it anyway. But yeah, I can't see any reason why it would be overturned, simply for the fact that it's an arguable one. You can see why the refs made a decision. It's not a glaring error there at all. And yeah, it's generally speaking, I would say that coming out at the end of the transfer window, right back or right wing back was probably the only area where we looked relatively well covered, with the fact that you had Joe Edwards, you had Cornell Such, and you had Sorinola available. Well, recently we've got Sorinola playing on the left, Such injured, and Edwards suspended. So maybe there is something to do. I mean, we have seen in the past Owen Dale play as a right wing back. I wouldn't be against seeing that happen if necessity rose, and we were able to both get him into the side and also fill a hole on the flank. But yeah, I think, appeal or not, we're going to be without Edwards for at least a month by the sound of it. I would imagine Pizza Cup notwithstanding, but who cares? So yeah, maybe I'd appeal if there was nothing to lose, but yeah, I can't see much change in there.
Finally getting round to your second question, John. The player that you wanted to talk about, obviously, Bradley Ibrahim, 2 goals from him. The first one, he's bullied and tenacious up against their defender. Gave, was it Anderson, the run around for that first one? And then obviously the second one, not many people would miss that, would they? But it's obviously the goal last week giving him the confidence going into this one. The new system suits him well. I basically just said everything you're about to say, but you can say it with a few more words if you like.
Yeah, well, I think a sort of broader point on the subject of discipline, which then leads nicely into Ibrahim, is I think there are 2 types of discipline, right? There's discipline in terms of like individual moments of behavior. That's when, you know, you're looking at you're giving away stupid penalties or getting into a scrap or getting a stupid yellow card or red card. But then there's like a different type of discipline, which is tactical discipline. You know, it's about executing a game plan, being patient. And what was kind of ironic yesterday is, on the first type of discipline, as has happened quite often this season, we looked like there was room for improvement. On the second type of discipline, I thought we were absolutely outstanding. And actually earlier in the season, I think both those things were a big concern. And now it seems like the first is a concern still, but the second, much less so. I felt that, you know, we absolutely deserved to win that game yesterday, whatever the XG stats said. And I'm sure, you know, I look forward to a certain national podcast telling us that we didn't deserve anything out of that game tomorrow because of the nature of some of our goals. But we really limited Luton from non-penalty play to very, very little. I mean, Ashby-Hammond's made 1 good save. I think you also have to take into account that you'd expect a team with 10 men to concede chances more so than a team with 11 men. And I think actually, you know, even then, in the periods of the game where you really have expected Luton to be piling the pressure on our goal, we just defended our box incredibly well. And I think Ibrahim is sort of an avatar of this point, right? You know, his individual discipline. He didn't get booked yesterday, but we know that's been a problem for him. Probably could very easily have been booked for antagonizing the home fans, which, as much as we love to see it, is a bit of a risky thing to do. But his tactical discipline, I thought, was absolutely unbelievable. Probably the best of all of them, you know, because this is someone who has got criticised, I think, you know, to some extent fairly for his starts of the season with us, but to some extent unfairly given that he's 20 years old and obviously has a huge amount of potential and room for improvement. I think Tom Cleverley has even sort of said, you know, he's a bit frustratingly inconsistent. He got dropped at one point. And I think that was not only for those moments where he gets a stupid yellow card, but it was maybe the being caught out of position that leads to the stupid yellow card on occasion. It was not sort of necessarily seeming to know quite where his role in that midfield was, or at least not executing it in the most coherent way. And yesterday, and by all accounts, the Stockport game, although I didn't see that, I don't know, it's Aaron's birthday, is it? Apparently so. He you know, is playing in quite a difficult position as well, right? Because like he's someone who has been played more as a defensive midfielder for us or a holding midfielder, but has now sort of been playing further forward and has had to sort of like balance a little bit those 2 roles because he's not exactly in the kind of number 10 position in the way that, you know, Caleb Watts might be if he was playing in the middle of a 3 behind the striker, for example. And I think we did have, especially after going down to 10 men, had to see Ibrahim sort of drop in and you know, not be as forward facing as we sort of had to defend as a block. But he led really well during that phase. And he was really aggressive going forward when it counted. And I think the goal he scored that didn't go in off his shoulder or whatever was a case in point of that. You know, it's Tolaj, I think, has turned the ball around the corner, sort of looking for him. And I think it's one where you can argue it's maybe not a great execution from Tolaj, but I think it's also somewhere he would expect a number 10 to be, right? Like he's popped it into a pocket on the edge of the box. And you can see Ibrahim is maybe just a little bit off it, right? Like he's a couple of steps further back. And you're thinking that's a little bit frustrating. You know, sort of give Ibrahim the benefit of the doubt because this is sort of a slightly different position that he's playing in. But then, you know, it's not a lost chance because Ibrahim turns it into a goal, and it's purely his own work from that point on. Rather than sort of stepping off or trying to run back, he's really aggressive in on the defender. Defender doesn't know what's hit him. I don't think he expects the challenge to come in. He's actually done really well, by the way, to nick the ball off the toe there without giving away a foul. He's because he sort of had to wrap his leg around a little bit, so it's a really technically good challenge. And then he shuffled onto his right foot, and for me, again, maybe it wasn't a particularly high XG chance. Maybe it'll get sort of cast as being a wonder goal. I just had absolute confidence that ball was going in the back of the net as soon as he lined up the shot. But he's a very precise shooter. We saw that last weekend. He got, was in space, I think, just inside the area. I would expect him to make the keeper work from there. And yeah, it's still a very high quality of finich. But I think, he's crafted a good chance for himself that maybe will be a bit of a better chance than maybe the sort of stats make it look. And he's finished it off with aplomb. And so, yeah, no, really delighted for him to get that. Obviously, and the second goal is a fluke, but he sort of, I guess you could say, he's in the right place at the right time. And I would also say for that goal, by the way, yeah, it goes in off his shoulder or whatever, but we've kept the ball alive from that corner twice. There's a Tolaj little flick at the near post, and then it's come out to Galloway, and obviously he's popped it back in. But so, we've not given up that set piece.
I agree with that. Just quickly, I saw you shaking your head earlier. Have you watched the Tolaj shot back?
I was shaking my head at the goalkeeper's ineptitude.
Oh, I thought you were shaking your head saying it wasn't going wide. Sorry, I'm just...
No. Oh, no. I was shaking my head because it was maybe the worst piece of goalkeeping I've ever seen live.
Right, sorry, yeah. I've sent Aaron off into hysterics. That was why my camera got slightly misty. Yeah, sorry.
I think he slipped.
It wasn't going wide. Yeah, maybe.
In real time, my thesis was that he slipped and accidentally touched the ball rather than it being intentional. It just looked like he was sort of going over to kind of usher it out and then fell over and sort of, it's a big mess either way.
Not the only thing that slipped out on Saturday.
Well, yeah. It seemed to be one where he couldn't decide whether he wanted to keep it in or let it go out for a goal kick, and in the end did neither. I think there was a similar example. This may be being terminally online. A similar example of something that I think went viral. It might have been in the Australian League at one point in the last minute of the game where the keeper just has to do nothing and let the ball get out of play. And he just doesn't do that. I have a feeling he's done similar. But yeah, total mess either way.
But I think it's I think there is a bit of variance issue here. Because I think pretty much everything has gone against us for the opening part of the season. Now, that's not to say that we were brilliant in those games or that we didn't deserve, to come out of those games with a relatively low points total overhaul. But there were key moments in games that were just consistently going against us. And now we're having key moments in games that are going more in our favour, obviously not uniformly. It just gives you more of a chance of winning games. So, yeah, the performance level has increased. I don't think this is a case of we've played the same, across the whole season, but suddenly we're getting luck go our way that wasn't there before. The performance level is just way, way higher. But obviously we wouldn't have won that game if the keeper had decided to just let that ball trickle out. Or we certainly wouldn't have won it with that moment because it wouldn't have happened. So it's there is a bit of luck involved, but I think that's kind of to be expected. That there will be sort of variance on those things. And Ibrahim, for his first goal of the two, made his own luck, as they say. So yeah, really, really good performance. I think he's also he's a phenomenal athlete for his age. He really is for a 20-year-old guy. I mean, that's really very young, I think, by the standards of someone you're expecting to be a kind of midfield general. His sort of strength of the tackle, his fitness, his running, the way he can hit a ball, it's very, very impressive. I think he's got a very exciting future ahead of him if he can just iron out some of the flaws in his game and his disciplinary record.
I will expand on that slightly, but I mean, that point is really worth noticing. When I was criticising him quite a bit earlier in the season, and I do, to a large extent, stand by it in my assessment of how he was playing. In my head, I thought he was about 22 or 23. To realise how young he is, how raw he is. Now, just for context, 20 is only a year older than Saka and Roberts. When Randall was 20, he was still on loan at Torquay. So that is actually, yes, Ibrahim had some poor games this year, and he's still very much got a few areas to improve. But for him to have the good sides that he does at age 20, he really could be a very exciting player for us in years to come. And yeah, he had an excellent game yesterday. Absolutely.
Sam, whilst you're unmuted, why don't you talk about another exciting prospect, I suppose.
Adam
Ross.
Randall. Oh.
Did you know at this stage of his development, in comparison with Bradley Ibrahim, who was on loan at Torquay or some shit, is what Sam would say. Or somebody says that quite repetitively. I don't know. I think it's Sam. Mathias Ross, Sam. Obviously, we saw bits of him against Cheltenham, but opposition that were a bit too weak to judge him and his strengths. What do we make of him now? He's got a league game under his belt.
Yeah, with the caveat that it is only one game. Very, very impressed. It looks an absolute Rolls Royce of a centre half, to borrow the cliche. He just had everything you want.
Sorry to go off football cliche. Can you be a Rolls Royce at centre back?
I think so.
I feel like that's reserved for centre midfielders. But okay, all three of you are saying you can, so I'll shut my mouth. But carry
on. He just had everything you want from a centre half. He was tall. He was strong. He won headers at what I think was a pretty good round. I haven't seen the stats. Adam can maybe nod or shake his head either way if that's right. But he won headers. He was tall. He was strong. He was quick with quick recovery runs. Really comfortable with the ball at his feet. It is only one game. Obviously, yes, we conceded 2 goals, but obviously those were from 2 penalties. There was nothing he could do about either of those. But I think what makes it really impressive is that one very big chance aside, when it was down to 10 men. Luton had virtually nothing from open play all game. I am maybe a little bit less, it's very much recognising we have improved. I am maybe a little bit more wary than John is, in the sense that I think that going forward areas, we might just be running hot a bit. There might be a bit of, an extent that we just drop off because some of these shots at the edge of the area will just kind of stop going in to the level they currently are. Not that we haven't improved, but that I am still absolutely not even contemplating the prospect of top 6. I want to make that very clear now before anybody accuses me of being a knee-jerker. I'm certainly not worried not as worried we're going down, because I know that everyone's going to take the mick at me about that. But this is a massive tangent, but I'm so sorry. But the point I'm
That's
getting...
Right. Just answer the only question I've got written down for you. Crack on, mate.
Oh, okay, sorry. Well, maybe we can come back to it in a bit more detail. But anyway, before I went off on that enormous, triple or quadruple tangent, the point I was making is that Matias Ross is an absolutely fantastic player on the basis of what we saw yesterday. And whilst, like I say, going forward, we didn't create an enormous amount, we absolutely categorically stopped Luton from creating a huge amount. And that's where we're going. And the improvements, I think, offensively are there, but the improvements defensively are even more noticeable at this very early stage. And I think Matias Ross, obviously in this game, was a huge part of that. Like I say, every tick list you want from a centre back, he had it. He had pace, he had strength, he had heading ability, he had the ability to play out from the back, but very good positioning. Didn't make any mistakes. Yeah, really impressed and really pleased if I played. It is only one game, but my goodness me, if he keeps that level of performance up, he really could be an absolutely fantastic player for us this season. And I think if not for Ibrahim having an excellent game and scoring 2 goals, he would absolutely have been man of the match. And I think I think we have collectively between the 3 of us picked the right 3 players, because Tolaj, Ibrahim, and Ross were absolutely our 3 best players. And for the people asking, no, the account calling themselves Sam Down in the comment is not the real Sam Down. That's somebody pulling my leg. So I'm not typing and talking at the same time. I am just talking and somebody else is typing on my behalf.
So you struggle to answer the question you're given at once, never mind typing and talking. So yeah.
Exactly.
Will the real Sam Down please stand up? Well, he does stand up anyway, so it's the real Sam Down if he's doing that.
There we go.
Oh, careful. One thing I would say in response to Sam quickly is that I agree Ross was excellent. In terms of man of the match consideration, personally, I think he went off too early to be considered, right? Because he went off right after the red card, and which means I think we should also spare a word for Galloway, who came on and was absolutely outstanding, closing that game out in the last 35 minutes or so. I think between the 2 of them, they did a really excellent job of defending the box.
Just to back up Sam down from a little earlier on, 7 aerial duels contested for Matias Ross, 6-1, which is a very good performance.
A very high percentage. And I think that he was only subbed off because we're managing his minutes. Maybe I slightly brushed over the fact he only played just over half a game in my kind of eulogy there. But not eulogy, he's not dead. What's the word I'm looking for? No, eulogy, well, eulogizing him, I suppose, is where I'm going with that. Where were we? Yeah, very, very good performance, even though it was only just over half the game. And I think that was management of minutes, really, because he only got about that same length for the Cheltenham game. He probably hasn't really started a game, I think, since November. I think it was, I think that was what the research said, Adam, in the article when he signed. So, yeah, very, very promising. And if we can get a few 490s out of him soon, fantastic.
Open question to anybody. Have we had an update on Caleb Watts?
Not an official one. I've heard the word not as bad as first feared, but that's just a bit of
but the in the know information you seem to give us, Sam, seems to contradict the previous thing you gave us. So we never actually know if you're in the know or not. So who knows? Not Sam. We'll find out soon enough, I'm sure. Maybe come Monday when they have a chance.
It's a hamstring strain rather than a tear. It's what their little whisper I've heard. So if so, that's good news.
Yeah, nice. Adam, I'm going to come to you on this one. Our transfer centre guru, obviously Such rumoured to be out for a while. No Benarus or Roberts in the squad. Obviously, Watts taken off in the first, was it 5 minutes? Would you expect the club to be exploring the free agent market for replacements?
Yes, in the sense that I wanted the club to be exploring the free agents market anyway, even before any of this had happened. So I think the need is pressing, and it's it can seem like we're going into with a little bit of desperation, and we know how these can occasionally go, where you sign like a Simon Church or a Billy Clark, and it doesn't really age your calls, and you never really hear from them again. But there are some free agents that I think we have genuinely brought in over the years that have assisted us with the idea of looking at Andre Gray from last season. Okay, he lived the majority of his Argyle career off one game against Watford, but I think generally speaking, you'd say that he was a successful addition considering what we need. And of course, if you go back a while, you've got Timoni Diagouraga, who came in and was an absolute revelation from the free agent market at this level as well. So the opportunities are there. I'm not going to list off the names of every free agent who's out there, but we know that there are names out there who could come in and at the very least, cliche alert, do a job for Argyle at this moment in time. So let's see. I would like to think the club had been on that as soon as the transfer window ended, to be honest, because it seemed like we were fairly short in many areas, and that's only been exacerbated by the fact that the Such has apparently picked up a bad one. Watts is going to be out for a little while, and that's without mentioning that Eamon Benarus wasn't in the squad yesterday, and I hope all is okay there as well. So, yeah, we needed to be looking before.
And we are due a Galloway injury.
Also very true. Also very true. Galloway's leg is still attached for now, but we know that is very much optional with the way that he operates. So, yeah, anything can happen. I want us to be sounding people out as soon as possible.
Yeah, obviously Galloway, who went away with Zimbabwe and didn't play because he had a knock. So I was actually quite surprised that he was in the squad for Luton.
Did he not play? He was on the bench for Zimbabwe, so I think he was just not selected, no? Or am I wrong on that?
Didn't play because of a knock, apparently. So
there we go.
Don't know. You tell me. Just going by what I read from, I think, Chris Harrington. Don't quote me on that.
Not going to score and ask him, Aaron.
Could do. Might not be home. We'll find out. Anyway, where was I going from there? Anything you guys want to add on the Luton game specifically? I think for me, the only real thing I want to mention is Law McCabe getting into the squad ahead of Caleb Roberts to spite Fox and Cleverley saying that we were going to prioritise our youth. We didn't see enough of McCabe, really, did we? When he come on last 5?
It was quite early days, and he was thrown into a bit of a cauldron pit. I think he did seem a little bit rabbit in the headlights at times, to be honest. But obviously, look, it was very early. He was thrown into a defensive rearguard effort, and obviously he didn't do anything like that bad that conceded a goal. But I just felt when he had the ball, he didn't quite pick the right option a couple of times. But it's still obviously very, very early. And look, I get it with Caleb Roberts, and I like Caleb Roberts, and I think Caleb Roberts should have got a loan. Really, now we've brought McCabe in, and we've got 4 CMs, including Waidu. And I would maybe even say once this injury crisis, clears up a little, Caleb Roberts should still get a loan to a National League side, because a loan would be very beneficial for him in his development going forward. All of that being said, you're not going to bring in a player who is highly rated at the club like Lorent McCabe is at his club to not have them in the squad. So, McCabe was probably always going to be in the squad ahead of Roberts, and really, obviously, probably Middlesbrough will at some point want Lorent McCabe to be starting games. So, look, don't get me wrong, if Bradley Ibrahim and indeed also Malachi Boateng play as well, or Boateng, as I should say, I still keep saying his name wrong. But if those two play as well as what they did play, he'll find it tough to get in. But yeah, he's gonna at least be in the squad. We have to kind of accept that's the price of the ticket in getting these low needs. But yeah, Roberts, I think needs a loan. And yeah, I mean, look, to be fair as well, in terms of Belarus was doing pretty much warm-up runs. So I don't know if that's actually a case of him not being fit, whether that could just be not being selected. Because if you look at who was on the bench, obviously, yeah, Zach Baker, obviously goalkeeper, Aseni, McCabe, Peppel, Galloway, Dale, and Finn. Now, you've already got a CM on the bench. Do you necessarily need, obviously, Belarus, I know it hasn't actually really played at CM, but I think that's his best position. Do you need 2 CMs on the bench? We very much saw at Cardiff that Belarus is not suited to being a wide forward or an attacking midfielder. So I think really you probably want a few more attacking options from the bench, which is probably why it was Peppel, Finn, and Aseni ahead of Belarus. So I think it's harsh as it is on Belarus, who had some very good games at left back at the start of the season. That could just easily be him not being selected. So I wouldn't read too much into it at this stage.
I mean, I hope it is, because that would mean that he's fit, which is obviously something we want to be a case going forward. And there is just one thing that I think this does kind of link in with something a little bigger that's going on, where, Sam, you mentioned that it would be good for Caleb Roberts to get a loan when this injury crisis is over, which I do agree with in principle. My worry is that this injury crisis shows no sign of being over, and we're picking up actually quite a few too many injuries. Yeah, exactly that. And I just wonder, and it's admittedly not limited to the Luton game, but it's a wider point of, should that be a concern for us? It feels like it ought to be, because it's when you get 1 or 2 injuries at the same time, it can be put down to being a bit unfortunate. When you get several injuries at the same time over a period of what feels like many months now, that's a wider issue, isn't it?
Yeah, repeatedly. So just going to jump onto some quick questions before we... Actually, I've just remembered who's on the panel. You're not going to answer these quickly, but 5 quick questions at least. I'm sure your answers won't be. Before we jump onto a quick preview of who bloody hell do we play next? Peterborough, apparently. Before we play Peterborough at home. The first question, Sam, you said you don't feel like this, and you were going to give you a more in-depth answer later. Zach Brown says, "Are we still being relegated?" That's obviously off the back of, like I said, this is the only question I wrote down. 3 wins from 4, which came against Blackpool, Cardiff, Stockport, and Luton. 3 wins on the bounce in all competitions. Are we still going down?
Probably not. Look, I'm not going to be like so bullish to stick to my, stick to it just for the bit and what have you. Obviously, I'm not. I like to think I don't change my opinion with the wind. But I also.
This is coming from a man who repeatedly sends a message to the group chat saying, "I've calmed down now. My opinion is different after every single game."
Yeah, but that's a little different, because that's like the sort of post-rep, the immediate post-match rage, and then the next day you have the kind of clarity after the rage has subsided. But I feel in terms of my actual fixed opinions, which I would define as the ones I still hold beyond, say, 12 p.m. on a Sunday, I like to think my opinions don't change with the wind, but also when the evidence changes, my opinion changes to a large extent. And I would be an idiot to deny the evidence has changed. Since we brought in a proper top quality striker, 9 points out of 12. Since we've brought in a top quality striker and changed to 3 at the back, 6 points out of 6. So you can't argue with that evidence. Look, is there maybe a possibility where
that's title winning form?
I mean, it is title winning form. Yeah, it's better than better than our previous title winning form, in fact. But yeah, obviously we're not going to sustain 100% points per game form. We're not even going to sustain 75% points per game form if we can get upper mid-table form. That will be enough to stop us from being anywhere near the relegation fight. But yeah, there are definitely improvements, without a shadow of a doubt. I still wouldn't rule out that we could get stuck back in by any means. And I'm going to give 3 reasons why. One, because I think we are, despite the genuine improvements, running a little bit hot offensively. Now, without wanting to sound too much like George Elick and basically everything around XG, is Bradley Ibrahim going to get an absolute, what pinger into the top corner every game? Probably not. Sometimes the shots from long range are not going to work to the sense that they are. So that's maybe concern number one. We might just not quite have we're having a bit of a run where everything we're hitting is going in, which is great, which we should absolutely maximise, but it's probably not going to quite continue in that same way. And yes, I know there has been some variants go against us, but it's just worth bearing in mind. Reason number 2 that could cause us trouble is Adam said it earlier in the pod, if we have an injury to Tolaj. I don't think in a long time we've been as dependent on one player as we currently are on Tolaj. And it's not just the goals. Actually, in terms of goals, he's not done that great. Only 1 league goal so far. But it's everything he brings. It's his pace, it's his power, it's his energy, it's his intelligence, it's his movement, it's bringing other players into play. It's his assist making, as we saw for Sorinola, and actually for getting it back in free for him before the little kerfuffle happened and then it went in off his face. So, yeah, all of that being said, Tolaj is an incredibly critical player. So that's the second thing that could be a worry. The third thing is a little bit more niche, is could this style actually be better placed for working against the bigger teams? And could we almost be in a little bit of trouble playing a 3-4-3 which doesn't value possession as highly? And by the way, I've seen people saying we've moved to a direct style. No, we haven't. We've moved to a more direct style. We've not moved to a direct style. Could that be a bit of a worry if we play a team who just come in and sit with a deep block, that we might not be able to open them up so well with a 3-4-3? Maybe. So yeah, my very condensed version of the answer is no, I don't think we're going down anymore. I still think we are at risk of being sucked back in. But if we can just get this injury crisis to subside a little, and if we can stick to the learnings and obviously get Ross and Tolaj lots of minutes, we will probably be mid-table. The end.
I did say there were short questions and not short answers. John, Superintendent, says we need to hear from you. And he's actually spoke your name correctly. Not a lot of people do that.
They don't. I'm very grateful. Yeah, I mean, like, it's almost like...
Yeah, that's not your question. We've heard enough, I think. What do you want? Do you want one about Caleb Roberts playing at fullback, or do you want one to talk about the recruitment team?
I actually wanted to take a victory lap for being the only person on this podcast who dared to venture in August that a lack of gelling and bad luck were going against us, and it wasn't just all a complete disaster, and we were definitely going to get relegated. Yeah, but I've just done that in one sentence.
But we also have improved, though. Yes, maybe there might have been a bit of that, but we also have very much improved in our own performances as well.
That's good. I'm muting you. I'm giving you the Bradley shush, and you.
That was the point.
I'm muting you. Shush. Behave. John, I'm going to ask you this question because you're a big fan of Muslich ball. Ad Cole says now that things are beginning to gel, do you think Cleverley style beats Muslich ball in terms of entertainment and efficiency?
Am I off mute now? I don't know. I think that's an interesting question to answer. I think that even I would admit Cleverley style is more entertaining than Muslich is when it works. And this comes as like the person on the pod who surely had the most favorable impression of the way Muslich played football. Personally, I actually like watching direct football. I really value managers who try and go from front to, or back to front as quickly as they possibly can and just get the ball into the net with as few touches as are necessary. I don't think that is the equivalent of hoofball. necessarily. And I think actually, games like Millwall at home under Muslich prove that can be a very, very sexy way of playing football when it comes off. Yeah, it's very direct, it's very physical, but there is sort of quick interchange with that. I just find that kind of thrilling to watch, actually. And I know it wasn't to everyone's taste, let alone the man who's just sat back down in the top right-hand corner. Cleverley, though, is, it's clearly a much more like pleasing on the eye style, like conventionally speaking. And even though I personally did like Muslich ball more than others, I think watching the kind of passing patterns under Cleverley when they come off is really gratifying, for sure. In terms of efficacy, I think we'll have to wait and see over the longer term, right? Because Muslich's style was not very efficacious up until the sort of, latter days of his tenure when it became unbelievably efficient, right? He sort of transformed from being a manager who wasn't getting the results he needed to keep us up in the survival race to one who, won, I think, 4 of his last 5 as manager, all against pretty good teams as well.
4 out of his last 6, but yeah, still
6.
very
Yeah.
impressive.
Yeah, so, that became very reliably effective. Now, I guess you could argue, was that also a style that was maybe better against the top teams in the Championship because it valued not having as much possession sitting in, and actually didn't work against the teams that were more happy to frustrate us. I mean, that's sort of a version of what Sam has wondered about Clev ball going forward. And I actually also shared that curiosity. I don't want to say I'm concerned necessarily, because I think that Cleverley has shown a degree of tactical flexibility in these last couple of weeks. And I don't think there's anything to suggest that, we definitely are going to set up next week or the week after in the same way as we did against Luton. Just because it worked against Luton, they might think, Peterborough are a team where we're going to need to have the ball more. That means we're going to have to, have different players on the pitch who can do more with the ball. It's not going to be a back to the wall effort necessarily. The onus will be on us to make things happen. So anyway, I think the jury's out on the effectiveness part of it. Obviously, the results have been very mixed so far. But if, this last little run of form is a case where Cleverley is, getting his ideas into the players are gelling, that there's tactical improvement, and that would probably be the side that I would err on rather than this being, running hot or luck or whatever. There's every chance that it can be just as effective as the latter days of Muslich ball. And I think with Cleverley, the more effective it is, the better it is to watch, because it means that his very sort of pleasing on the eye style of football is actually having an impact. So we'll see. But I am curious to now. This does feel like quite a interesting pivot point in our season, right, where we're going from playing teams week in, week out. I mean, I don't think there's anyone we've played so far where I would expect them to not be in the top half come the end of the season. I mean, obviously, I'm sure there will be a couple that do finish in the bottom half, but there were, these are teams that are good, actually, or good on paper at the very least, that we've played. We're now coming into a run of games where, you've got to respect the opposition, but it is against, quite a lot of them are against teams that you would expect to be on the weaker side or right down there. So it will be interesting to see if that sort of makes a meaningful difference to our results one way or another. Could be that we go into this run and are playing teams that are less good, and that just translates into easily beating them. It could be that it becomes a kind of, as Sam was saying, a type of game where teams sit in behind the ball and frustrate us, and we struggle to break them down, and things sort of regress a bit. I think it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Adam, question for you. Last question, actually. Well, actually, it's not. Second to last question. Superintendent asks, could Caleb Roberts do a job at fullback? Is there anything in his numbers that suggests that's something he could do? Obviously, we've seen that switch with Joe Edwards move from centre mid to right back. And I think I was an advocate for Randall to do that in his early days, because he did play right back, or at least right midfield at Torquay a couple of times, just to get that weekly Adam Randall mention in.
Oh yeah, because I don't think we've had one yet, have we? So thank you for that. I guess it's possible. Have I seen much of his numbers? No, the truth is there aren't many numbers to go off with Roberts to make any real firm conclusions about that. And being part-time as I am, I've not seen enough of him in the academy to know if he can play that position. What I do know is, as you say, Aaron, we've had players in the centre before who could convert to that role. Edwards being the obvious example. Randall has. And even though we never saw him there, I think Sarswich had the ability, particularly in the low system, to be a success at right wing back. So maybe that's an option. Maybe it's an option that we'll have to explore. I think the comment on screen right now is about right. If we're going to try it at all, we may as well give it a go in the Pizza Cup and see what happens. Ideally, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, even though we're probably far beyond that stage for the last few weeks. ideally, you'd want to bring Sorinola over and have Ballymumba play as a left wing back. Finally. Maybe one day I'll get my wish. But now that feels less likely with the fact that he'd have to come out of the number 10 position as well, and we'd have to find someone to fill in there. So yeah, it's a tricky situation with the injury crisis, which shows no signs of subsiding, and if anything, getting a little bit worse. Maybe we do see Caleb Roberts thrown in as a full or as a wing back eventually. I don't think I like to see it, not because I don't think I can do it, but it would just show like how depleted we actually are, if it does eventually go down that route. Then maybe we'll see.
Yeah, there's quite a few questions on recruitment, and Adam, you mentioned it there in terms of like we maybe not have recruited to the formation that we now want to play. We sort of switched to the back three after the transfer window shut, which is interesting. I feel like the whole transfer window discussion will have in a pod that we have more time and we can talk about it properly when we've got a larger data sample size to talk about each player individually and how that's gone. What are we doing? What's the next question? Sam, question for Sam. When was the last time we were down to 10 men and still went on to win a game? Make it quick. Don't give us half an hour answer, please.
I've been thinking and I'm really struggling. I don't. The one that I got asked yesterday was when was the last time we conceded 2 penalties in the same game. That one I did know. That was Lincoln at home, the 4-3 win in the COVID season. In terms of 10 men and winning a game.
give you... I've got one.
Go on.
That is quite a long time ago, so I'd be interested if you can name one since then. But just to put a marker down, Plymouth Argyle 2, Colchester United 1 in the 10-11 season. Chris Clark was sent off for a very high challenge, and we won that game. If I'm correct in.
I have a couple more recent ones to throw into the mix, which is Exeter City 1, Plymouth Argyle 3 in 2015 when Ollie Lee got his red card. We only needed 10 men to beat Exeter that day. The one, I'm not sure if it's in the spirit of the question, but the 3-0 against Accrington when Dan Scarr and Seamus Kennedy were sent off at the same time for the same tackle. It was a very interesting decision. We went down to 10 and went on to win, but yeah, it was. Hey, so did they.
There was one. Okay, well, I suppose in a very similar vein, not in the terms of opposition, be down to 10 men, but August 2019, Argyle 3, Walsall 0. Sarcevic was sent off when we were already 3-0 up. In terms of like something like this, where we were down 10 men quite early in the game and then secured the win after that, I really think we might be going back to that Chris Clark, Colchester. It has not happened often at all. Obviously, there's been like plenty of times we've been down to 10 men and got like a respectable result, like a fighting result, like, both QPR games, in fact, the Dan Scarr red the year before, and obviously the Adam Forshaw red last season. That's happened quite a few times, but yeah, obviously then we, in terms of more recent red cards, obviously Joe Edwards at Middlesbrough we lost. Yeah, I'm really, really, really struggling, to be honest with you.
That's right. We can come back to that. Anyway, let's move on. The next question, a question that I can answer at least. David Foster says, any chance of getting this published into a podcast format before tomorrow morning's commute? I used to listen to this on the Monday morning commute. Yes, I can do that. I'm back. Should be back to a regular schedule now that I've stopped pissing around with my weekend. So hopefully, until next weekend. Hopefully, I'll get that edited up tonight and ready for you tomorrow morning, because I know I've been a bit slack on that. Apologies. But if you're listening to this now on audio platforms, you already know that. So that's good. One I can answer. Right, quickly, let's do any other business? There is another question. I don't know who wants this. Alan Nixon is reporting Daryl Flahavan is off to Sheffield Wednesday. Sam, I know you recently praised him in a pod, but I don't know if one of the other two want to give your thoughts on this.
The one time I give you a bit of recognition, I don't think someone listened to it a bit too much and they've gone and posted him. That's a bit gutting, isn't it?
Well, you did literally say on that pod, I'm sure, you said, I hope nobody else is listening to this. And then literally a week later, if not that.
It's obviously a coincidence, but it's annoying nonethelage.
Tweeted my thoughts on it. I'm absolutely baffled that anybody would go to quite famous playing at stuff. But
I was actually going to say to correct you on that. That when that football club come calling for you, you don't say no. It's simply a massive club, a huge opportunity. Obviously, a club that's in great health right now as well. You know, if I was a professional football coach, I think really what you want to do is, you know, Wembley and Old Trafford and you know, fan protests after 10 minutes of every game. This is really the sort of environment that you know, elite environment that you want to be in. So no, I can't blame him at all for wanting to go. And Lampard transition. On a serious note, he's clearly done a great job with us. I think, you know, in a period where there's been a lot of turnover in our coaching staff, which has been obviously well documented and much discussed, and, you know, kind of question marks over not just the people at the top of the kind of coaching hierarchy, but some of the people further down in terms of, you know, fitness issues and whatever. He seems to have very consistently improved goalkeepers. And I actually realized that we went through that entire roundup without giving much of a shout out to Luca Ashby-Hammond. So I guess I can kind of double that into this point, because he is somebody. Why do you keep having for the audio listeners on the Monday morning commute? Aaron keeps having balloons flying over his head in a graphic for no reason. Definitely not his birthday, unless he's trying to have his second birthday in the space of a couple of weeks. But yeah, it was a good performance from Ashby-Hammond yesterday. He's obviously someone who's had a lot of criticism, some of it deserved, but I think if we're going to criticize him, we have to give him his balloons for you know, the massive improvement that he has made. He commanded his box so much better yesterday. Several really sharp stops, you know, good handling when it mattered, and yeah, clearly the goalkeeping coach has to take credit for that. So he'll be missed. You know, obviously, I don't really know why he's going there either. I think it's completely baffling to go to a club that's such a joke at the moment. But I'm sure he has his reasons, personal or otherwise, and hopefully we can find someone who can do as good a job as he has done, because he's been a great servant to the club.
But John will not say he wishes him well, because he doesn't wish anything well to do with Sheffield Wednesday, irrespective of what he's.
No, I wish him well.
Yeah,
And look, I think he's going to be busy.
Like, I get it. I understand. Every single person that seems to come to our club wants to move back up north for a better payday, and I don't begrudge them that.
He's not even from the north. He's from Essex. He's from Essex, but yeah, I suppose Essex is at least a significantly shorter commute to Sheffield than it is to Plymouth, I guess. But yeah, but look, I guess thinking objectively, the not getting paid thing. Obviously, you know, they were paid, albeit late for July, and I think for August they were paid on time. So I think that seems to have cleared itself up a little. So I suppose if you're being completely objective, Championship football, probably a pay rise, albeit a slightly reduced chance of actually getting the pay rise. You know, Championship football, probably a pay rise, and
Championship football for now, though. Let's be real. We did also concede 88. Was it 88 goals or something last season? We conceded. Like, he's coming straight back down to League One. Let's be real here.
Well, that's all to do. Someone's come up in the comments saying Southampton isn't Essex. Well, so I appreciate it. It was born in Southampton. I'm led to believe Essex is where his family live. I could be wrong on
also,
that.
fact checks him. He used to be a coach at Sheffield Wednesday and played for Leeds. So when I said back up north, that's what I meant. But sure,
okay. So maybe he does that. Maybe he has some roots up there, and that could be why. So yeah, you know, from the personal point of view, it makes sense. Yeah, comment on the screen about the sending off and winning. Argyle from Callum again. Argyle 3, Sheffield Wednesday 2, and Gala sent off first half. Yes, that's true, and it was great, but it was before the Colchester game in the same season that John mentioned. But that is also a good addition to it for sure.
Do we want to do a Peterborough preview? Do we care enough? Peterborough at home up next. Darren Ferguson's side rooted to the bottom of the table. John, 1 win in their last 10 in all competitions. That win coming on Saturday against the mighty Wycombe Wanderers. What can we expect from Posh come Saturday?
Yeah, well, it's a tricky one, because on the one hand, they've looked pretty desperate, and it's been hard to have much optimism if you're a Peterborough fan in this early part of the season. Could be that they got a good win on Saturday, and that sort of changed things around for them, and they'll be having a bit of positive momentum and belief. It could be that they came up against a team that has, by a country mile, the most incompetent current manager in the 92. So we'll see if that turns out to be true, and it doesn't really have much for bearing on Saturday's game. Look, any game is going to be tough at this level. It's a cliche, but it's true. You certainly have to approach football on that assumed basis, right? They, I think it's fair to say, are in a relegation dogfight. The aforementioned, I think it was George Alec on the Not Top 20 podcast made a good point the other week about Peterborough, which is, which was to say, it's very early days and it's not necessarily the case that you'd expect them to be in a relegation battle. But he was like, if you look at the other teams that are down there currently, it's teams that you definitely would expect to sort of pull away, or who have shown signs, like us, for example, of starting to put wins together. And already Peterborough were kind of trailing the Northamptons, the Exeters, whoever else of the world who you might expect to be in a relegation scrap by quite a lot of points. So they've already got a lot of ground to make up. Not to say they can't do it. But yeah, it's not just, this early season run of form that's been concerning for them. I think actually yesterday's win was their first in 15 or something like that. I was watching the highlights this morning. It's like it goes right back to the end of last season as well, when they were probably quite lucky not to fall through the trapdoor. So
all the best players from last season, their squad's been decimated as well. Like the players who were flagging it, like Poku was their best player, and a couple of others I think have gone as well. Motherfield
they've got Clyde Lolos, so I refuse to believe they've not got good players.
That's true. They have though established themselves as a successful selling club in recent years, right? Like they do sell players and then find replacements who are not necessarily people you've heard of. Obviously, there's not a lot of evidence that's worked for them this season, but
they were that for a long time, and it's now gone very south the last year or two.
Yeah. So we'll see. I think it's one of those where it could be in 4 months' time that Peterborough are, a terrible side who are rooted to the foot of the league. It could be that they, yesterday's win kickstarted a good run of form for them, and we're sort of playing them early in that. So I don't think we can make any assumptions here that we're playing a team that are nailed on to go down, because it is very early in the season, and they are a team that have, the resources and the kind of recent pedigree to be, you would think, very comfortable at this level, if not chasing the playoffs. So that being said, it is the first time this season I think we're going into a game against a team who look in really, really poor shape. I mean, that you could argue the Blackpool game was that as well, in the sense that they had a very questionable start results-wise, but Blackpool, I think, just have such a good squad on paper that you're always going to be a bit more nervous going into that. So, with home advantage, at our recent good run of form as well, so they should probably be thinking it's not a good time to play us, and hopefully we can make it count and get, it'd be nice to kind of notch a comfortable win, a sort of routine win where there's, no grounds for pundits to say that we didn't deserve it.
Just to reply to Darren Curtis's comment in regards to what I said about whether we care enough, I meant the fact that we've been on this podcast for nearly an hour and 20 minutes and we still haven't got to a Peterborough preview is what I meant, Darren. Obviously, I care about the fact that we play on Saturday. I mean, I more care about the fact that I want to go to bed and I have work in the morning.
We haven't even touched on the fan forum, and I feel I've saved that for another day.
Why do I feel like I thought we'd covered that, right? Sorry,
No.
this is a lack of communication between me and Joe.
Fan forum was on Thursday, and this is the first podcast since then. Well, look, well maybe
we'll do it next week. We'll do it next week. Fuck it. There's an interview coming out on Thursday that I'm sure we'll listen to. Apparently, that covers the fans forum as well. And
Pardon Aaron's French again.
We'll discuss it next Saturday. Yeah, about that. But it is past the watershed, Sam. I want to go to bed. Anyway, Adam, you've been sat there looking all pretty. What was the question? Superintendent said, if we don't beat Peterborough, I'll be sick as a parrot. Obviously, what are you expecting come Saturday? Which players do we have to look out for from that Peterborough side?
Yeah, Archie Collins is a really curious one. And in midfield, who looked for all the money that he was transfer listed and going back down south somewhere and at some point in the transfer window, and just didn't, and has now started every game and appears to be an absolute linchpin of the Peterborough midfield. I do think that he'll be one to watch. I do also agree with the point that's been made that a lot of their players who were very good for them last season with Mothersill and particularly Polku. I mean, to have Kwame Polku and be in a League One relegation battle for the majority of the season is pretty dreadful.
One I forgot to mention of those two was Cipriano as well. So that's 3 players who have all gone on to better things. 3 very good players for that level. So yeah, but probably almost a little bit akin to us with Ladapo, Kerry and Lemires being down the bottom end. I know that we actually went down, whereas Peterborough didn't. But yeah, the fact they were so near the bottom with 3 such good players as that and some other decent players, it's kind of giving Argyle 18-19 energy. And I think Ferguson is very lucky to still be in a job.
He is, and I think it's possibly a case as well of the strategy catching up with them. It's clearly worked, but it doesn't have to go wrong too often for you to end up in real trouble. I think that's where they have been. and it's not as if they've been unlucky really this season. Limited amount of data, admittedly, but they have been poor for a lot of the campaign. They have now got the win, but it feels as though it's going to be the exception to the rule. Of course, we'll see if it's going to be one of those where they use it to turn around, as indeed we are hoping to do with our last 2 victories. So interesting one going in. I think not necessarily for the first time this season, but for the first time in a little bit of a while, I think we go into the game as fairly comfortable favourites. But that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to win the game. I'd just like to see us play on the front foot and take the game to them, and hopefully that'll be enough. But they do still have players. Colin's the obvious example that can hurt teams as much as they aren't quite the force at this level that they once were.
Sam, anything to add? No? Good. All right, cool. Call it a night. No, go on. Thoughts on Saturday?
Yeah, come on, not a lot. Only just to sort of reiterate what I said, it's going to be a bit of an acid test of the how we do against maybe a not so good team. But actually, you know what? I think Peterborough might be one where it was almost the best of both worlds, in the sense that they're not very good, but they're also maybe a bit too proud to play in a deep line, that they might, try and attack us a lot anyway, and giving room for our, again, slightly more counter-attacking. It's still very much possession orientated system to then exploit the gaps there. So yeah, I'm relatively confident. It would be very, very Argyle to go and lose that game after 2 excellent wins. But no, I think we'll do it. I think we'll beat them. It'll only be 1-0, because I think it'll be Argyle, but they'll not go out and, it'll be kind of like that Rotherham game under Schumacher, where we just come off a decent run of only 1 defeat in 4. Obviously, Schumacher turned out to be Schumacher's last game in the Championship, where we're going into on a good upturn run of form, playing the team rock bottom of the league, and everyone kind of thought we'd turn up and wipe them away 3-0 or more, like we had done to other teams earlier that season. But as it turned out, it was a sort of a narrow, nervy 1-0, 1-goal victory. And yeah, I think it could be a similar story.
2 questions, John. As you're a closet Spurs fan, Argyle tweet says, "Is it Spurs under 21s this week?" I have absolutely no idea. Could be. Do we play them?
I think it's between the Peterborough and Burton games, actually.
Oh, that's good.
I'm also not a closet Spurs fan anymore. I liked Spurs in my childhood.
Okay, that's good.
No, just not Spurs fan.
Okay, that's good. I saw your Christmas jumper. It's all right. And
they didn't do an Argyle one, did they? So I had to get a Premier League one.
Okay, of course, if you say so. And Andrew Thomas says, "Is there any chance we could get complacent?"
Yes.
Okay, good. Right, we'll call that a night. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Shut up.
No, sure.
Sorry.
1-0 win.
Oh yeah, let's do score predictions. Actually, don't shut up, Sam. Go on, John. Score prediction.
Doing a thing where I'm sticking to the ones that I'm submitting to our pod chat prediction league at the beginning of the month, and I've just looked back. And after predicting we would lose against Stockport and Luton, I said we would win 3-0 on Saturday. So given I was so bullish after what hypothetically would have been the back of 1 win in 8, I'm going to be still as bullish and stick with that and say a 3-0 win. I think we're entering a better period, personally.
Adam Price, score prediction.
Going to go 2-1 Argyle, for similar reasons to Sam, that it could be quite narrow, and just the fact that injuries might blunt our attack a little bit. But I do think we started favourites of the game and should win it. Yeah,
I'm going to go, I don't know, 2-1. Why not? Same. Should be narrow. Whatever. Should win it. But I feel like we've got a give a goal away in us. Is that the thing? Sorry, Sam. Sorry for shouting at you. I know people will watch this think that we're not actually friends, and I don't like you, but.
And they're absolutely correct. No, we're joking. We love each other, really.
Do we? Okay, something like that. Anyway, remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and find us on all your major podcast platforms. I think that's everything. We'll be back on Sunday, I think, to discuss the win, hopefully, over Peterborough United. And maybe we'll divulge a bit more about the fans forum, because Simon Hallett's on Ocean City Radio, is that what it's called? Something with Joe.
Yeah, that's on Thursday night. So we can maybe follow up on that, because obviously a lot of what he's talking about with Joe will be based on the forum, so we can sort of follow up on all of that on in a week's time.
Yeah, we'll do that on. So I completely forgot, sorry, that the forum was on. We've had too many forums this year. Anyway.
And also, it is nice to talk about what was, for once, a very exciting end-to-end game and a win. So, the forum can wait.
Sam has actually prepared a 45-minute PowerPoint presentation, though. So I think we could start that now, right?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the myths and legends section in particular.
Nice. Love that. Anyway, love you. Bye.